This is a green bean. And in its current state, it's not really usable and not very tasty to drink. But how do we make it delicious? Well, we need to roast it. But how do we do that? At origin, the beans are dried between 10 and 13%. So our aim here is to dry the beans further. We heat the roaster up to 250 to 300 degrees C, depending on which roaster we're using, and then drop the beans in. At about 3/4 of the way through the roast, we begin to see some very visual and physical changes in the coffee. We also see some of the chemistry of the coffee bean changing. This is the point where we can start to influence and develop the flavours within the bean. At this stage, oils within the coffee bean begin to expand and the cellular structure weakens. The beans go from taking in heat or endothermic reaction to the cell walls breaking and releasing energy and generating its own heat, or exothermic. Subtle popping and cracking sounds can be heard during the reaction, hence this stage known as first crack. With the beans being heated and generating their own heat, the roaster's attention is needed to control those chemical changes in the coffee. If you use too much heat too quickly, you can overshoot the target roasting temperature. If we continue to heat the beans further, there is a second round of cellular breakdown. This second crack needs all the same care and attention as before to control the temperature and the roast. Heating beyond second crack, we begin to see oils develop on the outside of the bean and caramelisation of the sugars, and ultimately incineration. Some people call this dark roast, we call it burnt. Controlling these variables of temperature and time is called profiling. Now, profiling can be quite complicated, but what we're going to do is break this down into three very broad and simple profiles. Profile 1, full steam ahead. This is where first crack occurs and the roaster keeps to his course. The heat going in doesn't change, so the exothermic reaction vastly increases the temperature. This can be represented in a curve like this. This can accentuate acidity and complexity, but often to the detriment of body and complex sweetness. Profile 2, steady as she goes. The heat is removed during the first crack to prevent overshooting of temperature. After first crack occurs, gentle heat is reapplied, making sure the temperature doesn't drop, but the roast time is dragged out as long as possible. This profile will increase body, accentuate richer, fuller flavours, but often to the detriment of acidity and clarity. Profile 3, straight and true. This is where first crack occurs and the heat is reduced but not removed, allowing first crack's exothermic temperatures to happen, but in a controlled way. After first crack is completed, heat is reapplied so the temperature climbs steadily. This profile is the best of both worlds, increasing the body of the first profile while keeping some of the acidity that the second profile can lack. This also gives a more complex sweetness. But the most important skill of the roaster is to pay attention. Smells and sounds will give us far more clues than our eyes, although paying attention to those temperatures and what's actually happening to the bean can be useful. A roaster must rely on their experience to combine all of this information together to get the very best out of the green bean.